Located at the southern end of the Iberian Peninsula is the largest autonomous community in Spain by population and the second largest by area, Andalusia. Andalusia is different from the other regions of Spain for a host of reasons. It has a unique history, a unique geography, and a unique culture. Many of the things that people associate with Spain as a country are actually things that just come from Andalusia and can seldom be found elsewhere. Learn more about Andalusia and what makes it so unique on this episode of Everything Everywhere Daily. This episode is sponsored by the Tourist Office of Spain. Even though I've spent years traveling around the world, the country that I've probably returned to more than any other is Spain. I've literally spent months in Spain and have visited almost every region of the country. Whether it's Andalusia in the south, the Basque Country in Catalonia up north, the Balearic Islands in the Mediterranean, or the Canary Islands in the Atlantic, you'll find something different everywhere you go in Spain. Spain is one of the most visited countries on Earth, and there's a good reason for it. For starters, you have great weather pretty much year-round. You have some of the best food and restaurants in the world. You have some of the greatest museums on Earth, and a history that goes back thousands of years. Even though I've spent months in Spain, I still have a list of things that I'd like to do and see. And if you've never been to Spain before, you really owe it to yourself to go. If you're interested in visiting Spain, check out spain.info. There you'll find everything you need to plan your next trip to Spain and ideas for what to see and experience. If you're considering going on a trip this year, consider Spain. I guarantee that you will not regret it. Once again, to plan your Spanish adventure, visit spain.info. Several times I've mentioned that while Spain is a single country, it's helpful to think of it as a collection of smaller cultures. There are dramatic differences in language, food, and customs across the country. In previous episodes, I've done an overview of the various regions of Spain. In this episode, I want to zoom in on one of the largest and most important parts of the country, Andalusia. Andalusia is in the southernmost part of the Iberian Peninsula. It's the only part of Spain that borders the Atlantic Ocean between the Mediterranean Sea and Portugal. It has an area of 87,268 square kilometers, or 33,694 miles. It's the second largest autonomous community in Spain, which is their version of a state or a province, behind only Castile and Leon. It makes up about 17% of the total area of Spain. It has a population of 8.6 million people, making it the most populous region in the country. Andalusia gets its name from the Islamic period of Spain, which in Arabic was known as El Andalus. In a previous episode, I covered the 774-year history of El Andalus, from the Muslim conquest to the Reconquista. The Moors were expelled in 1492, which is the starting point of modern Andalusia. The Moors' legacy, however, can be seen everywhere in Andalusia. Two of its most famous attractions are both from that period. The Alhambra in Granada is a breathtaking palace and fortress complex that stands out as one of the most remarkable examples of Moorish architecture in the world. Originally built as a small fortress in 889, it was later transformed into a grand palace by the Nasrid dynasty in the 13th and 14th centuries. The Alhambra, which means the Red Castle in Arabic, is renowned for its intricate stucco work, exquisite tile mosaics, and courtyards such as the Court of the Lions. The other famous attraction from this period is the Mosque Cathedral of Córdoba, one of the greatest architectural wonders of Spain, showcasing a unique blend of both Islamic and Christian influences. It was originally built as a Visigothic church in the 6th century, and it was then transformed into a grand mosque after the Umayyad conquest, which established Córdoba as the capital of El Andalus. Over the next 2 centuries, the mosque was expanded into one of the largest and most magnificent in the Islamic world, famous for its red and white horseshoe arches. After the Reconquista, the mosque was converted into a Catholic cathedral, with later additions including a Renaissance-style chapel and a bell tower. Despite the Christian modifications, much of the original Islamic architecture remains, making it a rare and stunning fusion of both religions. Geographically, while Andalusia is not the southernmost point in Europe, it is pretty close to it. The capital of Andalusia, Seville, or Sevilla in Spanish, is approximately the same latitude as Washington, D.C. However, Andalusia is the hottest part of Europe due to its latitude and its proximity to the Gulf Stream. It has an average high summer temperature of approximately 36 degrees Celsius or 97 degrees Fahrenheit. The highest temperature ever recorded in continental Europe was set just outside of Cordoba in 2021. It was a peak temperature of 47.4 degrees Celsius or 117.3 degrees Fahrenheit. Given its high temperatures, it should come as no surprise that Andalusia is home to the only desert in Europe, the Tabernas Desert. It's located in the province of Almería in the easternmost part of Andalusia. If you aren't familiar with the Tabernas Desert, you might actually have seen it in movies, because it's often used as a filming location for the American Southwest for European films. In fact, it was the primary filming location for spaghetti westerns. Films like A Fistful of Dollars, For a Few Dollars More, and The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly were all filmed here. In particular, many of them were filmed in the Cabo de Gata Níjar National Park. As the closest point in continental Spain to the Americas, Andalusia's ports played a crucial role in the Spanish Empire, serving as the gateway between Spain and its colonies in the Americas. The ports of Seville and Cadiz were particularly important during the Age of Exploration and the Spanish Golden Age. After Christopher Columbus's voyages, Seville was granted a monopoly over trade with the New World through the Casa de Contratación, or the House of Trade, which was established in 1503 to regulate commerce, navigation, and colonial administration. The Spanish Armada actually set sail from the port of Cadiz in 1588. And just as a fun fact, Cadiz is actually believed to be the oldest continually inhabited city in all of Western Europe. It was first inhabited by the Phoenicians around the year 1100 BC. The Guadalquivir River allowed Seville to function as Spain's primary transatlantic trade hub, handling gold, silver, spices, and other goods from the Americas, even though it wasn't on the coast. However, as ships grew larger and Seville's river access became insufficient, Cadiz took over as Spain's principal port in 1717, becoming the center of colonial trade and naval operations. Both ports were instrumental in supplying Spain's American colonies, facilitating the transport of settlers, missionaries, and soldiers, as well as receiving valuable resources like gold, silver, sugar, and tobacco. They also played a key role in Spain's defense, housing naval fleets that protected Spanish interests from pirates and other rival European powers. Seville is the capital of Andalusia. It has a population of about 700,000 with a metro area of about 1.5 million. Seville has several notable attractions. The Alcazar of Seville is a stunning royal palace that was originally built by the Moors and is still in use today, making it Europe's oldest royal residence still in operation. It also happens to be the home of the world's largest cathedral and the world's third largest church, the Cathedral of Seville. Built on the site of a former mosque, construction began in 1401 after the Reconquista with the goal of creating a structure that would demonstrate Seville's wealth. The cathedral is also notable for being the burial site of Christopher Columbus. The fascinating story of how Columbus's body got to Seville will be the subject of a future episode. One of the biggest agricultural products in Andalusia is olive oil. The province of Jaén produces a full 50% of the olive oil in Spain and 20% of all of the olive oil in the world. Andalusia is also the birthplace of sherry wine, specifically in the Sherry Triangle outside of Cadiz, where the Phoenicians introduced winemaking over 3,000 years ago. Under Moorish rule, distillation techniques were refined, and after the Reconquista, sherry gained international fame, particularly in England, where it became highly popular following Sir Francis Drake's raid on Cadiz in 1587, which brought captured barrels of sherry to Britain. Now I want to focus on the thing that I personally find most interesting about Andalusia. Many of the cultural traditions and foods that people associate with Spain generally are actually just from Andalusia. It's sort of similar of how much of what people associate with Germany is actually just from Bavaria. Let's start with the food that is most commonly associated with Spain, tapas. The origins of tapas are surrounded in legend, but they're widely believed to have originated in Andalusia as a practical way to cover drinks with small plates of food to keep away flies. The word tapa comes from the Spanish verb tapar, which means to cover. One popular story suggests that King Alfonso X of Castile in the 13th century mandated that taverns serve small portions of food with alcohol to prevent excessive drinking. Another theory points to farmers and laborers in Andalusia eating small snacks during work breaks to maintain energy. But no matter which tradition you go with, the small dishes that people associate with Spain actually come from Andalusia. Another thing that people associate with Spain, and is really an Andalusian tradition, is flamenco dancing. Flamenco dancing originated in Andalusia, emerging from a fusion of Moorish, Jewish, Castilian, and most notably, Gitano influences in the 18th century. The Gitano people are a Romani ethnic group in Spain who traditionally have lived at the margins of traditional society. Rooted in deep emotional expressions of singing, guitar playing, and dance, flamenco developed as an artistic response to the oppression and hardship of the Gitano communities. Early forms of flamenco were primarily vocal with raw, sorrowful songs known as cante hondo. Over time, rhythmic hand claps, guitar accompaniments, and dramatic dance movements became an integral part of the performance. Flamenco flourished in the singing cafes of the 19th century, transforming it into a formalized art form. Today, it remains a powerful symbol of Andalusian identity, recognized by UNESCO as an intangible cultural heritage of humanity. Another tradition that is actually from Andalusia is bullfighting. Bullfighting is not nearly as popular as it used to be for obvious reasons. In Andalusia, bullfighting evolved from cavalry training exercises practiced by Spanish nobility in the Middle Ages, where knights would test their skills by fighting bulls on horseback. Over time, this spectacle transitioned into a public performance, and by the 18th century, the modern form of bullfighting took shape. One of the key figures in this transformation was Francisco Romero, who in 1726 pioneered the use of the muleta, or a red cape, and introduced the practice of fighting bulls on foot. Bullfighting became deeply embedded in Andalusian culture, particularly in bull rings like the Plaza de Toros de la Maestranza in Seville. I want to end the episode on one of the most famous and eponymous cultural exports of Andalusia, Andalusian horses. The Andalusian horse, also known as the Pura Raza Española or pure Spanish horse, is one of the most ancient and prestigious horse breeds in the entire world. Its history dates back over 2,000 years, where the breed was influenced by Celtic, Roman, and Moorish horses. Highly prized by Spanish nobility and cavalry, Andalusian horses were favored for their strength, agility, and intelligence, making them essential in warfare, classical dressage, and royal ceremonies. During the 16th and 17th centuries, they were widely exported and became the foundation for many modern horse breeds, including the Lipizzaner and Lusitano. Their natural ability for high-level dressage movements, such as the Spanish walk and piaffe, have made them a symbol of elegance and grace. Today, they continue to be a symbol of Andalusian culture, showcased in events like the Feria de Abril in Seville and the Royal Andalusian School of Equestrian Art. Perhaps the reason why Andalusia became associated with Spain in the minds of so many people outside of the country was because so many ships going to other countries from Spain all went through Andalusia. Yet, Andalusia is its own thing. The people of Andalusia have their own culture and even their own dialect of Spanish. All of the things I've mentioned in this episode are the reason why Andalusia isn't just a special part of Spain, but actually all of Europe. The executive producer of Everything Everywhere Daily is Charles Daniel. The associate producers are Austin Oetken and Cameron Kieffer. Today's review comes from listener B. Bodenstein over on Apple Podcasts in the United States. They write, Medal of Honor. Thanks, Gary, for making the point that it is the Medal of Honor, not the Congressional Medal of Honor. It drives me nuts that almost everyone misnames it. By the way, the chaplain in my Vietnam organization in 1967 was awarded the Medal of Honor. Sadly, he died doing it. Thanks, B. Bodenstein. I can't say that I've ever managed to meet a Medal of Honor recipient. I don't know who your chaplain was, but doing a quick search, there have been 9 chaplains who have been awarded the Medal of Honor in its history, 3 of which served in Vietnam. Oddly enough, I can't deduce who you're referring to because all 3 of them were recognized for actions taken in 1967, and 2 of them, Vincent Robert Capodanno and Charles Joseph Waters, were killed in action within about 2 months of each other. Remember, if you leave a review or send me a boostagram, you too can have it read on the show.